All right, rock and roll. Welcome one, welcome all to the Scorched Earth Political Podcast. I am your host, John. And if you could hit that like and subscribe button, I hope you had a good weekend preparing for the big Thanksgiving here in a couple days. And man, where did this year go? I know that's a cliche on a cliche, but sometimes cliches are true. I tell you, it just starts to ramp. When you get to Labor Day, man, the year is just bloody over. I hope everybody had a good weekend. You're going to have a great holiday. Please be safe. We need you there. And feel free to drop anything you want in the comments. We are receptive to anything, friend or foe. We respond to them all. And if you have any podcast ideas, please feel free. We are a community here. We are one Scorched Earth. And just drop them. We'll get to it. The biggest political news of the weekend was we could kind of see it coming, but we really didn't know it was going to be the blast radius of it. And that's Marjorie Taylor Greene, the MAGA firebrand from Georgia, resigning effective January 5th. And it is funny, it's 2 days after she qualifies for her lifetime pension. And my question is, how in this world do members of Congress get a lifetime pension for only being there for 5 years? At your business, do you get a lifetime pension for being there 5 years? Perhaps not. But I really do wish she would have resigned on January 2nd, because it would have been so ironic that the lady who didn't tell us where she was all on the evening of January 5th before the January 6th insurrection, God, what a rich irony that was. But believe me, she wasn't going to do that. She came in 2018 in the MAGA wave that was the Donald Trump presidency, in a very, very conservative district. She has always been MAGA. She has always been the Tokyo Rose for this administration. She is the most vociferous, the most outspoken, I guess would probably be a better word, of the Trump agenda. And she literally, for the last 5+ years, has been one of those people who incinerates everybody about her. Friday night, she posted a 10-minute video on X, and literally, I wanted to giggle. She said, "My life is being threatened. My family is being threatened." You know, it's funny. For 5 years, she's sitting there talking about left-wing violence and left-wing death squads and just every outlandish thing, which we know is not true. And the second she crosses the dark master Donald Trump, she has to go out and get new security. Like, does anybody put that together? And we're going to have another story here talking about Elise Slotkin, the Michigan senator, and what she's had to endure just because she did a 8-minute video. Just crazy, just what it is, signs and wonders. But the true story of what's going on with Marjorie was, let's go back 1 year. Donald Trump comes in, wins his second term. She wanted a cabinet position. He would not give it to her. And then she decided late this summer she wanted to run for governor. And Donald Trump once again blocked her on that. And then you've got to remember, this is a lady who's been exceedingly loyal to the propaganda of the cult that is MAGA. And then she wanted to run for Senate, and Donald Trump said, "No, you're not going to be able to do that." Okay. Now she starts going on The View. She starts talking about reasonable things like the expiring ACA credits, about the Epstein files. There's a lot of things that could be going on here. Personally, I don't trust her. Okay? I think she is scum. She's been scum for the last 5 years. I don't believe because she went on The View and this is Lord's and we are going to wipe away your sins and we're going to give you penance and there's going to be absolution. No. It's like the famous promoter, Bob Arum, used to say, "I was lying yesterday, but today I'm telling the truth." No. This is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's been lying her entire career. Now all of a sudden she got a little wisdom, and really what it is she saw no political upside of her future. Donald Trump had blocked her at every moment. She didn't get some epiphany and say, "Oh, MAGA's not right." No, she does believe in MAGA. Now, we can disagree on that, but I do think she was sincere. Her being incredibly incendiary with her rhetoric, space lasers is what caused the Los Angeles fires earlier this year. I mean, the lady is literally got 3-4 bolts loose in that brain of hers. And I think the thing is she had to figure out a way to get away from the political party so that she can run for Senate in Georgia next year, because I think she thinks that Ossoff is very vulnerable. I don't think he is. I think he's gonna bring at least 55% of the vote, but that's another story for another time. She sees herself be able to run as an independent and be able to get 40% of the vote, which might get her into a runoff, and then she actually can leverage that into a Senate seat. I think that's really what it is. There's one other thing I'm going to throw out there that could possibly be true, and this would be this is really out there. Okay. I guess even the left wing has some conspiracy theories. We don't have enough. There's actually a demarcation line. Like if you have over 500, you got to be a MAGA. If you have under 500, you could be a leftist. I wonder, and she has been very closely aligned with the Epstein victims. Virginia Giuffre, she has actually said that she will tell their stories on the floor of the House, and that basically gives her immunity from prosecution. One of the things that's happened with the Epstein survivors is that if they go public, they can be sued ad nauseum by these wealthy men for slander, libel. And we all know that that's not going to go to anywhere, but they can literally, it's litigating somebody into the poorhouse, into bankruptcy. And these women are afraid. They're telling a true story. They were used, they were abused, they were trafficked, but wealthy men get what wealthy men want. And Donald Trump is one of them. And I do wonder, when Jeffrey Epstein's mansion was raided back in 2019, the FBI literally took hundreds of thousands of documents. But one of the things, and Jeffrey Epstein's brothers even said this, that he did, and this is probably really in a wicked way, very prudent, he took videos of the wealthy men having sex with these underage girls. That's how he got leverage on them. That's how he got political capital. That's how he increased his monetary reserves. Just throwing it out there. What if there's a tape that Marjorie Taylor actually got to see with Donald Trump doing nefarious things? And literally that was the line that broke. Because I do think, as much of a wackadoodle as she is, that she is genuinely concerned about the Epstein survivors. I do. Her and I can agree on that. And I think these women have a story that needs to be told. It needs to be adjudicated. And personally, as far as I'm concerned, all these mother effers should be in jail forever. And that starts with Donald Trump. That starts with Prince Andrew. Let's just start going down the line. This blast radius is so incendiary. And, Lawrence Summers, who I used to really, really admire as an incredibly bright economist, he was the former president of Harvard. He teaches at Harvard. He is in the Epstein ring. He has not been accused of doing anything nefarious, but just being inside that ring, his career is over. And I got to say one thing, cool. I'm down with that. If you're inside that circle, you play with that, you play with fire, you get burned, Larry Sumners. You get burned, Donald Trump. You get burned. The only person who seems to be improving in this past year is Ghislaine Maxwell. Doing another 20 years down there in that hellhole in Florida, where that's where she belongs. As far as I'm concerned, they can sick the dogs on her every night. But now she moves to Clud Fed in Texas, and things seem to be looking up because there's always a pardon on the horizon, right? Let's move on real quick, but I want to read you something that Donald Trump actually posted, and pretty much this is after Marjorie Taylor resigned. He said, Marjorie Trader Brown. I guess because green grass turns brown when it rots. God, he's got to get some better political writers because of plummeting poll numbers. This is the same guy who says his poll numbers have never been higher. Okay. Yeah, okay, buddy. Don't add an extra number in the front. And not wanting to face a primary challenger with a strong Trump endorsement where she would have no chance of winning. It's funny, in the first term, I remember him endorsing quite a few political figures that got smoked. Who's that pedophile guy running for Senate in Alabama? Mr. Moore? Yeah. Oh, sorry, didn't quite work out. That's when we actually got a Democratic seat. That's bad. That's how bad his endorsement was, that we got a Democrat elected in Alabama. It's 2 years, but I'll take it. She has decided to call it quits. Her relationship with the worst Republican congressman in decades, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, also known as Rand Paul Jr. because he votes against the Republican Party. Yeah, he voted for the big, beautiful bill, but he forgot that. And really good legislation. Like, when are they going to put some legislation on the floor? When is the Trump administration actually going to put out a bill like the Infrastructure Act, the Chips and Science Act by his predecessor, the great Joe Biden? Sorry, I digress. And he says, I did not help her, for some reason primarily that I refused to return her never-ending barrage of phone calls. Marjorie went bad. Okay, here is the other interesting thing. By her resigning early in January, that seat is going to be vacant for approximately 3 months because they have to call for a special election, and then they're going to have a temporary appointment. But that's a vote they're not going to have, especially on January 30th, when they have to fund the continuing resolution of government funding. We went through this 40-day shutdown. All of a sudden, the ball got kicked down to January 30th. She will not be there to be a vote. Could be an interesting thing that what we're seeing. All right, let's also talk about the Brave Six. And these are the amazing 6 Democratic lawmakers last week who made a video. They're all former military or CIA. And they urged government personnel, military and non-military, to disobey illegal orders from above. Now, they stated in the video that illegal orders are ones that violate the Constitution, the principles of democracy, and the principles of law. Sounds pretty good. Now, I want to go back in there. One of the things that's kind of interesting is one of the first things Donald Trump came in, he got rid of all the JAGs. And those are basically the military lawyers who basically counsel people in the military, higher ups and just the average people on things that they are doing, whether they're illegal or not. He fired basically every one of them. Now they don't have counsel. Now they don't have anybody to represent them if they are brought up on charges. Let's just call it what it is. So now we had those 6 senators who basically urged disobedience for unlawful acts, unlawful orders, and Donald Trump lost his stuff. He called it seditious behavior. He called for them to be jailed and then to be hung. Now, we hear all this bullshit, and it's literally bullshit, about how the left-wing violence and, they were involved in the Charlie Kirk murder. Of course, it was a guy who grew up MAGA, grew up in a Republican state, went to a Republican college, and shot a Republican activist. Yeah, but somehow, because he had some type of association with somebody who was transgender, immediately he becomes left-wing. Oh my God. Have you ever heard of J. Edgar Hoover, Roy Cohn? Look it up on Google. So what he is saying, and man, it just blows my mind that the Republicans are truly responsible for, I'm going to be conservative here, say 80-85% of all political violence in this country. We don't just have to look at the big one of January 6th. I follow the news every day. I look at 6 to 10 news feeds every day. Literally 80% of all the shootings are by a Republican leaner, a MAGA, people like that, right? So one day after Donald Trump says, and remember that trial he had in Manhattan where he was convicted of all those financial felonies? He called for the death of that judge while the trial was going on. So after he calls for these 6 to be jailed and hung, one day later, the Michigan senator in that video, Elisa Slotkin, had bomb threats on her house. On her house. There is a direct tie-in. He calls for violence, it happens, just like he did on January 6th. All the MAGAs out there can sit there and dice and deflect and, well, he didn't actually call for it. It's so stupid. Literally, that's the problem with MAGA, is their IQ is so low, they cannot understand what inference is. It's like your boss coming up to you and you have some issue you have to do, and he says, just get it done. You know what you have to do. And that's what Donald Trump did on January 6th. Of course, he had meetings with his staff and Oath Keepers and Proud Boys that accelerated the violence, but let's move off that for a minute. So one day after he calls for these 6 to be hung, Elisa Slotkin at her home in Michigan gets bomb threats. Now you think this isn't real. You think, wow, there's no actual quid pro quo, there's actual no directive. I get tired of that. I mean, we live in a society where we have a modicum of intelligence. We know when somebody wants something, right? It's like Donald Trump doesn't actually direct Pam Bondi, except when he does it on a social media feed and says, I think James Comey should get investigated. And she says, yes, sir. And then literally that week, he's getting investigated. Did Donald Trump sign a piece of paper? No. Social media is the inference. It is the directive. So one day after that happens, her family getting bomb threats. And I know I'm kind of going down the circle here, but in April of this year, I don't know if you remember, and I'm sure you do because you're so intelligent. We have a great audience here, and I love the questions. Governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro, while him and his family were sleeping in their house in Pennsylvania, were firebombed with 2 Molotov cocktails by a MAGA supporter. I think his name is Cody Balmer. And this comes directly after the president called Josh Shapiro anti-Semitic. Josh Shapiro is Jewish. He calls him anti-Semitic for his comments about how Israel was treating the Palestinian people in that war. It was so outlandish, even somebody of Jewish heritage said, this is insane. Donald Trump calls him out, and then literally the soldiers start lining up. They start lining up. Oh my gosh. It's funny, and maybe somebody can drop this if I got a MAGA supporter out there. Can somebody tell me where Joe Biden or Barack Obama asked for the assassination or the death of a political opponent? Can you just show me that? Because I'm missing it. I do remember seeing that scum, Charlie Kirk, call for the assassination of Joe Biden while he was in office. He called for his imprisonment and then his assassination. The Democrats don't do it. And I am not espousing us doing that, because I think there's a line you can't cross and ever come back. And that's really, really a huge thing. All right, let's real quickly talk about what's going on in Ukraine. The United States, under the incompetent Steve Witkoff, and really, instead of a real estate developer doing peace agreements, shouldn't we maybe have a diplomat doing that? But let's move off that. For the last month, has been negotiating with the Kremlin. He came up with a 20-point peace plan, and it seemed like that's a really common theme in the Trump administration. That's the exact number of points we had over there in the Israeli-Palestinian peace deal, which is going real well. It basically was 20 talking points that I'm missing it, but Vladimir Putin wrote on a sketch pad the night before. I want this. I mean, among the points in this plan were Ukraine had to have their military in half. They had to have their missiles in half. They could not have an international peacekeeping force. And basically what was happening is, and they had to give the eastern province of Donbass, over to the Russians. And basically what this is, and let's really call it what it is. They went into Crimea in 2014, took that. Then they went into Ukraine in 2021. Is there anybody of a modest amount of intelligence who doesn't think, okay, Russia's just going to retrench, and in 3 or 4 years, they're going to go after the rest of Ukraine? That's exactly what it is. And Europe is freaking out. So Friday, Donald Trump said they've got till Thursday, they've got till Thanksgiving to accept this deal. Now, let's go back. How many times did he give Russia a pause or a break? Remember, I think it was a month ago, and it gets so confusing because of the incompetence of this administration. A month ago, he said, well, we're gonna put sanctions on their two biggest oil firms. It hasn't happened. Oh, okay. But now we're giving Thursday. We're giving Ukraine till Thursday because I guess Donald Trump wants to be able to have his Mar-a-Lago turkey feast, thinking he has a chance at a Nobel Peace Prize. This just in, not this lifetime, Donald. Not this lifetime. Just if you want a peace prize, go over to the Obama Library and go ahead and look at that one. Um, so Marco Rubio, after that was said, told senators, and he's a former senator who's now Secretary of State and Chief of Staff, and I think he's head janitor too, is he's told them, he said, well, it's not really negotiating, it's just a wish list. Well, that got out. The senators went to people, because not all the senators are, just because there's a lot of Republicans out there who are fighting for Ukraine. And one of them that I hate the most is Lindsey Graham. He is an advocate for Ukraine because he thinks if we lose Ukraine, they just keep going through Europe, right? And all of a sudden he tells them, the senators go to the press, it comes out that this is a wish list, and literally Marco Rubio understands his head is on the chopping block. He couldn't do a backpedal quick enough. He was backpedaling like a cornerback in the NFL on 3rd and long. Like, oh boy, this guy gets behind me, I'm in trouble. That's what he was worried about. He said, no, we have a peace plan, whatever. Europe is not going to sign off on this. And I have talked about this previously on the podcast. The president of Poland has said, after Ukraine, we're next. They understand it. They have flyovers over all these European countries that are close to the Russian border, and they're just accidents. They're just mistakes. No, they're not. Russia's trying to reestablish, quote unquote, what Vladimir Putin thinks is their empire. Will he do it? He might under Donald Trump. Donald Trump has threatened to leave assistance, to leave helping the Ukrainian government. Do remember when we signed that accord with them for them to dismantle and get rid of all of their nuclear weapons, that we promised to protect them forever? Well, obviously that accord didn't anticipate Donald Trump and only caring about Donald Trump. Oh, well, sorry. He will protect Qatar. The country that gave him a $400 million jet and a golf resort. I guess maybe Vladimir Zelensky should have got a golf resort out there on the Black Sea for him, right? If he wanted to really be protected. I mean, the corruption is just so disgusting on every modem, every level. But Europe is going to respond hopefully this week. I did see something interesting this year, that Europe has given more money in military aid by $5 billion to Ukraine than the United States has. And understand this, that money that we are giving to Ukraine came out of the Biden administration. That is not new aid given by the Trump administration. And the only reason it's going through is because Donald Trump needs the assistance of the Republican lawmakers in the Senate who do support Ukraine. And there is a sizable contingent that are doing that. Where are we going to go with this? I do think basically Europe and Ukraine is going to put their middle finger up. Zelensky has to walk a very, very delicate line here. He can't anger Donald Trump because he needs possible future assistance in military aid. And he is basically, I don't know, is this the end of NATO? If Donald Trump walks away from this and says, hey, you're on your own, which he has threatened, and honestly, with Taco Trump, this will probably be the one time, sadly, that he actually stands up for what he says. I don't know. I worry about NATO and our alliance with them. And honestly, if we walk away, Vladimir Putin wins because his stated objective as a former KGB was to destroy NATO. Breaking the alliance between the United States and Europe, that is the ultimate win for him. It doesn't matter about Ukraine anymore. If Europe doesn't trust us and we will walk away from them and not support them, Russia won. And Vladimir Putin, like we all know, has played Donald Trump like a fiddle brilliantly. Either way here, he is going to win. Who's the losers? The beautiful Ukrainian people, American citizens, because there is going to be a day when we need help from NATO. and they're going to put the middle finger up. Because you know what? In this world of adversaries and enemies, it sure helps to have a lot of friends. And it does seem like the people that Donald Trump wants are friends are Qatar, Israel, Saudi Arabia. Is there a theme here? Oh yeah, they're all regimes that have no respect for human rights. Yeah, and I'm saying that about Israel. How's that genocide going over there? You let in some more food? Oh, sorry you haven't. Yeah, what's new? All right, that's it for today. If you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. And we'll see you soon on the Scorched Earth Political Podcast.